Do you agree that, it's time that we all wake up and take responsibility, even for our ancestors that did not know any better?
Been waiting patiently to have this kind of conversation. Well, it's another day with Wake Up with KC, and let me ask you something. I had to learn to become my truest fan. But how do you become your truest fan? And today I have a very special guest that I've been waiting patiently to have on my show, and he explains it through his own life experiences and how to become your truest fan. So please welcome Rob Brown. Rob, thank you for joining. I love the compass in the background, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. The secret behind that compass is my house was staged a little while ago to be sold, and we didn't sell it, but I kept the compass from the staging. So,
Well, you know what? Very good.
yeah, yeah.
It's
So
very
I guess
symbolic.
that means that it was well staged if you decide to keep something that they put in place.
So, Rob, you're an author and a coach, and you wrote the book Truest Fan, Live, Love, and Lead with Purpose and Impact. How was that inspired through your own life journey?
It was really inspired by many different parts of my life journey. When you read the book, you're actually introduced to 7 different characters who each teach a lesson to kind of the main character in the story, Brownie, which many people think is me, and in some ways it is, but there's a lot of it's a fable, so there's a lot of truth and a lot of fiction in it as well. But those 7 people in my life taught me the 7 lessons that come together to be the truest fan journey, and really and it's how the whole concept came into play as I just watched how these people lived, how they inspired me, how that helped me inspire and work with other people. So I just wanted to capture what I learned from them, because the lessons are timeless and ones that should be thought about and learned over and over again.
Well, would you agree that, a lot of us are taught to believe certain things that are from other people's beliefs and, what they learned and they just passed it on down?
Absolutely, absolutely. Again, every character in here taught me something, and that's why they're attached to that specific lesson. And in fact, one of the biggest reasons I wrote the book was I wanted to pass these lessons on to my daughters. I have triplet daughters who I want them to, and they're adults, but I want them to always remember these lessons that are so important to me and live them in their lives, which I believe they do, but also to be able to share them with others through their work, through eventually raising their own children. So I really like the idea of people taking what they learn, sharing it with others, helping us be more real, more authentic, get past those things that might be holding us back. And I think that's one of the best ways to do it.
Well, how would you know if, you're brought up in this environment, you listen to your parents, and I know there's a statement in a book, honor and obey your parents,
Mm-hmm.
and, certain aspects of being in the religion also environment. How would you know any different of thinking different based on what you're told, especially as a young child?
Right. Well, I mean, there's lots and lots of stuff that can get in our ways. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And I think that's where we all need to be introspective. And it's actually the first lesson of Truest Fan is you need to be a truest fan of yourself. To be a truest fan, you need to believe in yourself, believe that you are capable of accomplishing great things, whether those great things are big things that everybody in the world sees, or there may be smaller things like raising 3 children and being really proud of them and what they do, and that was a byproduct of what you put into place. But I think in the end, you have to make a choice to believe in yourself, and in doing that, you've got to sort through stuff that can get in the way, because there's all sorts of things that we've learned. You use the term religion. I am a Christian. I am a Jesus follower, and I have absolutely no hesitation in saying that. But in practicing my faith, and watching, how religion is practiced, corporately or sometimes, in churches can get in the way of that. But what I like to think about is, when I talk to somebody that says, Rob, I've stopped going to church because I don't like what somebody did in church, when I was a kid or when I wanted to get married or whatever the situation might be. And then they've allowed that to disconnect them from their relationship with God. I'm like, why would you let some thing, some person, some incident disconnect you with the thing that is most important in our lives, which is that relationship that we have with God? So I just think you've got to sort through that, and that's part of believing in yourself and sorting through the truths that you run into and sorting through the non-truths, the lies that may not even be intentional, but they happen.
Well, I mean, coming from my perspective, I don't need to go to church to have a relationship with God. I have God when I go outside in nature, when I'm out on the beach, when I'm just cruising down the intercoastal of South Florida and I'm looking at all the beauty. That to me is connecting with God that I know and
Right.
establish a relationship with.
Right. And I totally agree that those are all great examples, but just being here today is a blessing from God.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't, you don't need church to love God. Although church can help, religion can help if it's practiced properly. But that's not always everybody's life circumstance. And when it comes to that, but I think when you ask the question about how do you cut through that stuff, I've got to go back to what's at my core, and that is my relationship with God. And the thing that he taught me that is really one of the greatest inspirations for the book, which is this whole idea that we need to love each other the way we love him and love ourselves. And if we can spread that love by being truest fans of ourselves, of others, in the things that we do, the causes that we care about, the people that we run into that we know or that we don't know, and they see that love coming out of us, that's God. Because, one simple definition for God is love.
Well, yes. And to me, God is unconditional love. But we're taught conditional, limited love. And in history, looking at history, I could see, like, wow, the God that I know just loves. There's no color, there's no race, there's no gender. There's just pure essence of love. So how do you know that love, that pure bliss love, that unconditional love, if you're taught the opposite of it? So how would you know what truly love is based on probably the limited beliefs of what you've seen growing up to know the difference?
Right. Well, before we got on the air, I talked about my upbringing in an Irish Catholic neighborhood in Cleveland. And there's no doubt that my father had some chauvinist opinions of the way that he interacted with my mother. They loved each other. Until she died of cancer, they were each other's one and only. But there was a a nature to that relationship, which I don't have with my wife. We just celebrated our 36th anniversary because I was able to see that there were some things that he was doing, and she was allowing him to do, that kind of held them back from having this truly open, loving relationship, in my view. And they loved each other. So I'm not trying to rewrite history or their history, but I think you see things like that happen. That's, obviously very close to me. It was my family, but I didn't like parts of that, and I was able to do if you want to call those limiting beliefs that I could have had, I just decided not to have them. And my wife and I have decided that the way that we love each other and live with each other is different than the way that my mom was with her dad. And I'm sure my wife would say that it was different than her mom and her dad, although they had a whole different sort of relationship. But I think you just have to be able to get see those things. Ask yourself, is this something that I really believe? Is this something that I really want to carry forward? Or do I want to stop and think about how do I adjust that in relationship to the things that are most important? And I think that's what I try to do.
And so would you agree, Rob, that it's just discerning what is right for you and what isn't right for you, just because you see something different in your parents, and apparently it was the way they were brought up too. Their parents.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's like a past cycle pattern that's just keeps passing down, and it's been passed down for centuries. And there's historical writings about how women were treated. I could go back like 95,000 years, back into the Hammurabi Code of Law. There's 282 laws, and how they described how women were treated is just, oh my God. I'm like, I wonder if I ever was in that kind of past life back then,
Right.
And then I see how things are today, even in some other countries. It's always the same. Women have to stay covered. Women, they don't have a voice. Like, we didn't have a voice until the late 1960s. Women had the right to vote. And then that's when things started to shift and change.
Right.
So to me, it's like recognizing certain things of history, even in past relationships, your parents' relationships, your grandparents. Understand the timeline, the era, what was going on, the events that were taking place, and then say, hey, I see a pattern. I see a cycle. I don't like that. That doesn't sit well with me. And it's trusting something inwardly that's actually speaking to you that, no, this is not healthy, or it's not good for you. Would you agree?
Yes. But I say that with a little hesitation, only because I think that we all have that choice, and we can make that choice right now, right here. We don't necessarily have to completely go back, because my history only goes back. You go back 95,000 years. I only go back 90,000 years. So I don't have as much historical knowledge as you do. But sometimes I think we can get too caught up in going back and looking at the past. We do need to learn from the past, and that's why I read the Bible. It's a great way to learn from the past. But in conjunction with that, I'm an optimist, and I have to say things are better. Things are a lot better. One of the again, it's on a very personal level. My father and mother, neither one of them graduated from college, but both of them made sure that my brother and sister and I graduated from college. That was something that they were limited by in their life, because and none of their ancestors went to college either. They made sure we went to college. And then as I was raising my daughters and saying, that's a great thing that my parents helped me do, I not only made sure that my daughters were on a path to go to college if they chose to do that, I paid for them to go to college. So it was just another step further, and it's not a bragging thing. It's just I think we all want each succeeding generation to be better off than our parents were, better off than we are, because I think that's our goal. It's part of being a truest fan, is to make the future brighter by really sharing love and experiences and opening people's eyes up to the possibilities that they hold inside of themselves, or we hold inside of ourselves if we believe in ourselves.
Right. And would you agree that, sometimes the ego plays a big part in being able, and it's a barrier that keeps us back or held in prisoner in our own mindset and our environment, because it becomes so familiar that you just don't understand or even think the possibility, and we have to change our thoughts.
Yes, I mean, ego can definitely get in your way, but a healthy ego is a good ego, right? So, if we don't allow our egos to kind of build up barriers where we stop listening and stop paying attention to what's going on inside of us or what's going on around us, then I think we can move forward. But if we allow our egos to say, "Hey, I've got this figured out," I'm 60 years old. I've got this figured out today, and the next 30 years are going to be a piece of cake because I finally cracked the code. We're probably making a mistake, because things change, and we've got to be able to deal with those and bounce those up against those things that we believe the most about ourselves, and we believe the most about the right way to live and care and love other people.
So let me ask you about eliminating your distractions and unleashing the unmistakable energy of putting your most important priorities first. How would you explain that to someone?
Right. So and I'm glad you asked that question, because that's one of the main principles in the Truest Fan book. And what I see in my work is both a personal and professional coach, is that we allow ourselves to make other people's priorities our priorities. In a perfect example of that is, just look in your email inbox, and the number of times that an email comes in through the Ethernet, and all of a sudden you're responding to that person right then and right there, even if it isn't important, even if it's stopping you from doing the most important things that you're working on that day. And that's a simple example, because that's just, it's part of a daily routine. I call success habits, is not allowing those kinds of distractions. But it also happens at bigger levels. As I set goals with my clients for what they want to accomplish over 12 weeks, I try to go in 12-week periods of time, 12-week sprints, to really get the most important stuff done. They are invariably hit with other opportunities, other bright, shiny objects. They say, well, hey, maybe I should do that. And I always ask them, what is most important to you right now? What did you say you wanted to accomplish over the next 12 weeks? And will that new thing help you get that done? And if so, then we should look at it. Will it take you off your path? Then don't do it. Just think about it for your next 12-week sprint. So I just think we have to have, we do have to put some blinders on and focus on those things that we believe are most important, and then bounce everything else up against them, whether it's our daily to-do lists and email lists, or it's goals that we have for the next 12 weeks or the next 12 months or for our lives.
Well, I've learned from Dean Graziosi, you got a 12-month plan, a 1-year plan, and then you break it down, and 3, 6, 9, 12, then 30 days, then weekly, then daily. And it does take a lot of work to sort through that but being organized the way I am, I have to have that kind of plan. So
Sure. No, I
it,
appreciate that.
it sort of helps. Like, okay, in 1 year from now, I want to accomplish this. Well, let's break it down, 3, 6, 9, 12, and then 30 days, and how it all connects to accomplish the goal you set out that you want, for the end of the year in 1 year.
Right.
And it
And
makes it to where you're not overwhelmed by, you break it down in like increments to where, oh, well, I could do this. Now it seems more doable, more realistic. Would you agree?
absolutely. And that's exactly what I mean by important work. I mean, there are ways similar to what you talked about, but there are other ways too where you can get to a point of understanding, what's most important. What do I need to be doing today to be able to accomplish what's most important, whether it's in my business or what I want to do with my family or things that I want to do with the causes that I care about, and just break that down. That's your important work, and you have to then be able to have the discipline to say, this new thing, this new idea, it might be a great idea. It might be something that I do at some point in time in the future, but until it makes sense for me as it relates to the thing that is most important, I'm not going to do it.
Right. And, just because because opportunities come, you know, I've learned, even through my own life experiences, when opportunities come, when you have this idea, you write it down, okay, great idea. And then this opportunity comes. Uh, do you think that sometimes when these opportunities, we want to take action right away because a belief is, hey, you got to take some risk in life. Do it now. When the opportunity comes, don't hesitate. Me now, I've learned, pause, write that opportunity down, and wait and see, because then I listen to my gut. I feel more than anything of, is this the next best step for me? Should I pursue this now or wait until, like, 4 or 6 weeks later? So, okay, I'm just going to make a note and put this in my planner, that an opportunity, whatever it
Mhm.
is, everything happens to me in divine timing. When it all easily comes together and flows together with such ease, I know I'm on the right path, and it's a dot that connects to something even bigger and better later.
Right. And I would imagine for you that part of the reason that that is true is that your plan that starts out, out into the future and breaks down to today is also propelled by having some big dreams, big things that you want to accomplish. And so I think that's where I don't know what you call it, cosmic energy comes from, is because you've attached what you really want to accomplish with uh, with the day-to-day activities, the month-to-month activities that you need to do, and that keeps you focused and allows you to put that thing off and not worry that you've missed an opportunity, because most of those opportunities are just cleverly designed by some marketing expert to make you think that it's the most important thing that you need to do today, even though it's not, or to think that this will never come along again, when in reality it will.
Absolutely. I had to learn that from my own personal experience. Now I'm like, okay, sounds good. I'm going to write it down. And then I'll know, sometimes we get signs. Sometimes, it's just the little things by, like you said earlier, paying attention.
Mhm.
Now there is like, now it's, I believe in a good book, that I've read, and it's stated in the Bible that most Christians read. And, we were here to be prosperous and abundance. And I question, I'm like, well, I'm my family's not, they don't have this abundance that I'm thinking from reading and whatnot. So there's something wrong with this picture because
Right.
if this is what it says, then why am I not seeing others like this?
Right. But
Living, the abundance and prosper and healthy and whatnot. And, I've been on a journey on the truth about that. And I believe, honestly, now it's part of a program and some of the beliefs. But if you can just stop and vision, because most visionaries that have been very successful, you want to talk about the Wright brothers, Tesla, all of them, they held a vision. They saw a future or they saw a vision. And I go with like, I have visions of my future self and I just hold on to that vision and I wrote it down. I'm like, okay, I see it. That's the end result. I see that in my future self. But what do I got to do? What do I have to change in my thoughts, how I feel, and the actions I take until I'm living it? I'm
well,
bringing it into the present.
right. Well, I mean, my personal way of thinking about that is that we have to believe we're living that future now. We're just on a journey, and it may not look exactly the way that we think that it looks. But I think having a mental picture of what your success looks like, of what those big dreams are, and holding them close to yourself allows the disciplines that you then add by doing your planning to lead you to where that is. And I also think it's really important that we don't take this prosperity and abundance thing being that we all need to be able to, walk on coals and turn into billionaires and invent something, because prosperity is different and abundance is different to different people. And, this time that we have on earth is only an infinitesimal part of this great life that we're living because of the gift that God has given us of life. That we why get caught up in whether or not you made your $10 million or whatever it is. So I think sometimes that idea of prosperity and abundance and the way that's pulled, from the Bible, those. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but you watch the TV commercial of the televangelist, and the person comes on and say, I sent $30 off to XYZ preacher, and the next thing I know, $300 shows up in my mail from an unexpected tax return or something like that. And I'm like, no, if that's what we're expecting from God, then we are really
You're
whacked out.
limiting yourself then.
Yeah, we just need to trust that if we accept that, if we really take the time to think about that picture of what the future will mean, what should look like to us, what we'd like it to look like, and we do that in prayer. You used the word discernment earlier, and discernment, having a conversation with God, and then we work at it. Good stuff happens, and sometimes you win the lottery. Other times you may still feel like, hey, there's a part of me that's missing, but I'm happier in so many other ways, and that's my abundance. That's my prosperity. The abundance in my life has nothing to do with money. It has to do with my relationship with God, my relationship with my family, and the many blessings that I experience through the different things that I'm doing. But that's my prosperity. That's my abundance. It might be different for you or for somebody
That's your
else.
meaning. In other ways, that's your definition of what it means to you and what you prioritize in your life and value in your life. And it doesn't mean that, I mean, who wants to be a millionaire? I think there's a reality game show on that.
Right. Actually, let me tell you a funny story that I thought about yesterday. So I was talking with a client who we're in kind of the dream big stage. We're thinking about what those things are that he wants to accomplish in his life, and we throw, all of us, throw around things like, I'd like to have $1 million. I'd like to give away $1 million. I'd like to buy a Porsche. And I thought about that for a second, and I remembered a client of mine whose big dream, one of his big dreams, was to, once he got to a certain level in his business, he was going to buy a Porsche. He bought the Porsche. He got to that level. 3 weeks later, he turned the Porsche back in because he was too afraid to drive it. he was used to driving, an SUV and getting in a 2-seater that can go, a zillion miles an hour. Just, it wasn't what he thought it was. So
my question would have been, why didn't he go test drive one first to make sure that's what he wanted?
He test drove one. He put in an order for it. He waited for it. It wasn't what he thought it was going to be. And so that's why I think, taking the time to carefully discern and think about what those big dreams are, what those big goals are, and then kind of breaking them down to see, is that really something that's important to me? And maybe most of the time, hopefully it is, but sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's, we put a false goal in front of ourselves.
Well, wouldn't you also, is it fair to say that sometimes, yeah, you make this dream, you make this plan and all that, but then you change your mind, and then something else it feels more right for you, and that's okay.
Absolutely.
And it's a process of, to me, experiencing things in life, learning from, and then choosing something better that fits right for you. And then there's going to be something else that comes along, and then you're going to experience and learn from, and then expand and grow. And I think that's why we're all here, is to remember that we're all one big family. We're all connected, and we're here to just experience life. And to me, it's like make humanity better and our planet better, honestly.
Right. And again, that's a, I was going to say, I hate to keep going back to it, but I like going back to it. That's why I wrote the book, because the way, to me, that we make the world a better place is that we become truest fans. And again, the concept behind truest fans is to love yourself, to love others, to share that love, to love God. And I think if we lead with that, if we hold that truth is part of this process that we go through, and what we dream about or the plans that we make, they all work out. They all work out better, and the world is a better place.
Rob, let me ask you, how you define to live life with integrity and find joy in doing for others. How do you define that? And I think you wrote it's part of in your book as well. You explain it. Can you explain it to the audience a little bit?
Yeah, no, so the book has 7 distinct lessons for becoming a truest fan. And the 7th lesson is to live with integrity and to live intentionally. And that is living intentionally, implementing each of the other stages of the book, which start with believing in yourself, which includes loving others, which includes smiling. One of the rules of a truest fan is smile often, do it every day, make other people smile, because that's one little way that we can make the world a better place. Even, it doesn't take a whole lot of effort. So that's,
and you know what I say about that smiling part? Because I often go to people when they're not smiling. I'll go up to them and say, "Hey, smile." It makes people wonder what you're thinking of.
Yeah. Yeah. No, in fact, in the book, when I talk about smiling, one of the things I say is, think about people that you maybe haven't been in contact with in a while, and send them a text message or an email and say, hey, just thinking about you today. Hope you're smiling. Those little things are simple kind of trigger events that can lead to bigger things that allow us to live out this life of loving everybody all the time, and no matter what circumstance.
Well, now they got this new thing, emojis, and I have an avatar emoji that's giving a wink and a kiss. So I often send those to people though, and I'm thinking about them. Hey, here you go.
Yeah,
Enjoy
no,
your day.
no, absolutely, absolutely. I think taking the time to pick other people up, even they may not be down, they may be okay, but just tapping them on the shoulder and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about you. I care about you. I hope you're smiling." That's so important.
So, do you have any, like, you do one-on-one coaching? Do you do group coaching? I mean, with this COVID and everything, have you been doing it virtually? I mean, what's been going on in your coaching practice?
So I do both individual coaching and group coaching, but my coaching has been virtual for a long time. I do go to see some of my clients for an annual meeting with their teams, or retreats, one-on-one, where they just want to get away from things. But most of it was always virtual. So from that aspect, the pandemic really hasn't impacted my business. But I do both types of coaching. Most of my clients are either financial professionals or entrepreneurs in some ways, and we really are focusing on helping them be the best versions of themselves, both personally and professionally. And sometimes I'll start a relationship with somebody and they say, Rob, help me with my marketing. I got to get my sales up in my business. And the next thing you know, we're working on personal stuff, finding ways to bring more of themselves personally. And other times somebody will come to me, Rob, I need somebody to help me get centered, focused on being the best version of myself with my family. But we end up talking about their business too, because the two end up
Hand in hand. It's balance. Wouldn't you agree that it's honestly, I look around and it's like, oh my gosh, everybody's becoming robots. They're doing the same thing habitually. People form habits, habits form your future. And when you're doing so much in one or three areas and you're lacking, I think there's a wheel, professional, self-care, spiritual, professional, and there's a few other recreative, recreational, family, things like that.
Mhm.
If you got like higher numbers and majority of everything else becomes out of balance too. So when you just said, oh, someone wanted me to help them with this sales, but wind up with a personal relationship, it goes hand in hand. It's like, to me, hearing that, I'm like, well, if you're having problems with your sales and what's going on in your personal life, because you have to have some kind of balance. There's something's out of a line, and you
Right.
need to
Well,
align and balance it out.
yeah. Sometimes, I mean, sometimes it's just your systems suck, and you've just got to fix them. And it's nothing. Everything personally is just fine. You just aren't doing it the right way, or you've changed something that you shouldn't. A lot of times, if they were doing something well and they decided to change it for some crazy reason, and now it's broken, and I just have to help them get back to where they were. But balance is important, and that's why I was trying to emphasize, because my process that I go through with people is a 9-step process that begins with dream big. That's the number one step in the Truest Fan leadership process. And when we talk about dreaming big, it's really easy for business owners, for financial advisors who are running their practices, to just talk about the numbers. How much bigger can my business get? How much more profit can I put in my pocket? And it's sometimes it's hard to break away and say, but what do you want to dream big about outside of your work? Why is that thing that you said is important? If you make $1 million, great. But what is that really going to mean to you? What's that really going to allow you to do? You start breaking that down into talking about things, like improving the relationship they have with their spouse or their family, or be able to do more in their community or with the causes they care about. Then the dream becomes more real, and the business part kind of attaches to the personal part, because they are interrelated. I struggle a little bit with the word balance, because I think too many people think that there's like this equal balance, and I think the scales are constantly, moving in that towards a balance, but you don't just get it to balance and leave it there.
Right. And then, when you say what is important and whatnot, I remember, because one of my mentors is Dean Graziosi, and he goes 7 depths into your why. And by the time you get to the 5th or 6th, you find the true why you want to do something.
Right.
And sometimes it's a lot out of here thinking what's important, and it doesn't align with what's here. Would you agree?
Yeah, because answering that why question can be really hard. And oftentimes, the first answer that somebody gives is a little bit superficial. It's not really getting, as you said, to the heart of the matter. But then if you follow that first question up, what's the question I like to start with is, what is the single most important thing you're trying to accomplish? And somebody answers that question, you get, their first answer, and then you say, that's interesting. Tell me more. Why did you say that? I've not heard that before. Dig a little bit deeper. And you do that. I don't know if it's 7 times or 3 times, but it's however many times it takes to get to the real why, is then you know that you're on the right path. And there's a better chance of those big dreams that you have becoming a reality.
Yes. And then you get to the heart of the matter, and then to me, it's like part of a transformation. It's like the spark that finally got lit that motivates you to get up, to set those goals, to get to that point of the true meaning of why you want to accomplish whatever that is.
Right.
Do you agree?
Yes, absolutely. Because I run into people all of the time in my business who have achieved very, very high levels of success. And if you looked at them on the outside, you might say, hey, they're the prosperous, abundant ones. But they have questions too. Did I deserve that? I've had so many clients say, I'm making more money today than I ever thought was possible. Do I deserve this? Why am I in this situation? How do I, am I supposed to make even more, or am I supposed to do something different? And so even inside of success, sometimes you can find that you're missing something. You're not feeling as strong about what you've accomplished, because it wasn't really the thing that you're trying to do in your heart. You're just really good at it. Maybe you had some good luck too.
Could it be also that feeling of not being fulfilled? Because I've heard a lot of successful, multi-millionaires that they do it just to accomplish something, to prove that they can, but they're not really fulfilled. Have you experienced clients such as that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
how do you help them get to that? Like, okay, you seem like you're not fulfilled. Why is that? You're very accomplished,
that's kind of one of those squishy questions that a lot of people, have a hard time asking. But it's similar to what you were suggesting, that Dean Graziosi talks about getting 7 layers deep in the why. Just keep asking questions, and then remembering to go back and ask that big question regularly, at least once a year, stepping back and saying, hey, my why last year, my big dreams were these things. Am I closer to some of those? Are some of them things that really aren't important anymore, and I have some new ones? But then everything that you do goes back to how is this leading me towards those things that are most important to me? And I think that's just that's just part of it. And I'm fortunate. I work with people who, in general, are very successful, but they find that they're missing something. They're not finding any sort of balance with what they're doing, and we just help them get there. And sometimes the way they think they need to go to get there is the furthest thing from the truth.
Wow. So, Rob, I believe I have it in the description, but can you share with our audience today of how to get access to Truest Fan, Live, Love, and Lead with Purpose and Impact? Where can they find that book?
Right. The best place to go is to go to truestfan.com. And on that page, there's a button that will allow you to purchase a copy of the book. And my advice is buy 3 copies, because this is the kind of book that can be life-changing. It can really help you get on the path to eliminating some of those limiting beliefs towards being the best version of yourself. And when you do that, you want to keep 1 copy for yourself so you can look at it over and over again. And I get that comment from people who have read the book. They're so happy they have a copy because they refer back to it regularly. But then take a copy and give it to somebody that you care about, that needs to learn some or all of the lessons that you've learned. And then keep a copy in your car or your pocketbook or your briefcase, whatever you carry around all the time, and give it to a stranger, because that's how you can become. That's part of being a truest fan. It's not just about yourself. It's just not just about the people that you care about. It's the people that you run into that may need a pick me up. I just recently, I was traveling, and there was a person at the front desk in the hotel that I was in that was really looking out of sorts. And so when I got a chance, I went back to my car, got a copy of the book, and went back inside and gave a copy to her and said, I just want you to know that I noticed you might be having a bad day. I wrote this book, Truest Fan. I think if you read this, it'll make a difference in your life. And so that's it's, to some people that sounds like a cheesy sales message. How I sell more books is by encourage people not just to buy 1, but to buy 3. But that is, to me, that is a strategy for being a truest fan, is to take what you learn, apply it to yourself, and share it with those you love, and share it with people that you don't even know.
Well, that's also, to me, is like you're planting a seed. It's not about just the sales, but planting a seed to help others change their life, to get out of whatever circumstances that they are, because everybody is dealing with some kind of circumstance, and a little spark of hope. That's why I started this podcast. And I realized, going back when I was a younger kid, one of my biggest role models and mentors was Oprah Winfrey. And I used to watch her show back in the 80s. And I remember now saying, I want to do what she does. But I didn't know what it was that I was going to be actually doing, but I wanted to do what she does, be a talk show host. I didn't know what kind of talk show I was going to have. And it all, like, little by little, started coming together. And now I'm living my purpose, my life. I love what I do.
Yeah, and it comes through. I've not only in our conversation today, but in the other podcasts of yours that I've listened to. It's obvious that you really care about the person that you're speaking with, and then the audience that's listening to that conversation. So I'm very impressed by what you do, and I think it's just great the way that you take the time to share your message.
Well, thank you. And I like to hear other people's message and other people's stories. And I applaud you for what you're doing and how you are helping others change their life and be their truest fan, be the best version of themselves, because then they could start living their best life now. That's my mission. That's what I'm about. And I'm glad and honored. And it's such a pleasure, Rob Brown, to have you as a guest, because we think so like-minded on so many levels. And I just commend you. I really do. Thank you for being on the show today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I want to mention one more thing about the book is when you buy a copy of the book, you get access to an implementation guide, and alongside the implementation guide is a 7-day Truest Fan challenge. So it's how you can put the steps in the book to work. So I just want to make sure that people who get the book don't just, pick up a copy, put it on the bookshelf in the back and leave it there. I want it to come to life, because I think if we could fill this world with more Truest Fans, it would be a lot better place. And we get through some of this craziness that we allow ourselves to become distracted by.
Well, one more thing before I sort of like wrap this up, and I definitely want to talk to you after, but if someone has more questions and would like to have you as a coach, I believe I have it in the description, but where can they go if they're listening?
Right. Well, they can just email me, Rob, ROBB @truestfan.com. If I get anybody I get an email from, whether they want to talk to me about working together or they just want some quick advice, I'm happy to share ideas and answer questions, because I want to help as many people as I possibly can. So just shoot me an email. Don't have to keep it make it any fancier than that.
Well, and I want the audience, if they're watching and listening and they're purchasing a book or they have a question for Rob, let them know that you saw Rob on Wake Up with KC.
Absolutely.
So he knows how they found you, Rob. So I would love for the audience to, to let that be known.
Okay, absolutely. And one of the things I do when I
Wake Up with KC, Rob, and I want to know more about whatever. I have a question about this.
I promise you that anybody who reaches out to me through the show, I will let you know, because I always ask that. How'd you hear about the book? Why are you emailing me? Because it's good to know. It's just part of getting to know somebody, right?
Absolutely. Thank you again, Rob, for joining us today. My intentions in my heart is someone listening today, it's making a difference, and they're going to buy your book. Three books. So I'm definitely going to purchase the 3 books and just pay it forward. That's what I believe in, paying it forward. So thank you, Rob.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, there you go. I hope this was inspirational. And you know what? Why not be your truest fan? And please look up Rob Brown, go to the description, and get the book, especially if it's going to help you just change one little thing to help you become your truest fan. I encourage you, and buy 3 of them. Go to his website if you have any other questions. And thank you for joining us. And you never know who I'm going to have next on Wake Up with KC. So keep tuning in.
Do you agree that, it's time that we all wake up and take responsibility, even for our ancestors that did not know any better?
Been waiting patiently to have this kind of conversation.